Marie Antoinette was born on the 2nd of November 1755. She was born Maria Antonia Josepha Johanna at the Hofburg Palace in Vienna. She became an Archduchess of Austria, and was the penultimate child of Empress Maria Theresa, ruler of the Habsburg Empire, and Francis I, Holy Roman Emperor. Her godparents were Joseph I and Mariana Victoria, King and Queen of Portugal. Her relationship with her mother, the Empress Maria Theresa, would be a difficult one, but they would always love each other.
Soon after birth she was placed under the care of Countess von Brandeis, the governess of the imperial children, including her older sister Maria Carolina, with whom she would have a lifelong close relationship.
Maria Antonia spent her early years either at Hofburg Palace and the imperial summer residence Schönbrunn in Vienna. It was at Schönbrunn that Marie, at the age of 7, met Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, 2 months her junior and a child prodigy, on the 13th of October 1762. The results of her schooling were poor despite receiving private tutoring. By the age of 10 she could not master writing in German or in other common court languages such as French and Italian. Maria Antonia did though develop into a good musician under the tuition of Christoph Willibald Gluck, mastering the harp, the harpsichord and the flute, as well as excelling at dancing. She also sang regularly when in family met in the evening, possessing a beautiful voice. After the 7 Years' War and the diplomatic revolution of 1756, Empress Maria Theresa decided to sue for peace with her enemy, King Louis XV of France. To secure peace and curb the ambitions of Prussia and Great led them to seal their alliance through marriage. Louis XV formally requested the hand of Maria Antonia for his heir and oldest living grandson, Louis-Auguste, the Dauphin of France, on the 7th of February 1770.
She finally met her husband at the forest of Compiègne on the 14th of May.
She took on her French name, Marie Antoinette, on her arrival in France. A ceremonial wedding took place at the Palace of Versailles on the 16th of May 1770, and after the festivities, the day was due to end with the ritual consummation. The lack of a marriage consummation plagued both Louis-Auguste and Marie Antoinette for the first 7 years of their marriage.
Marie Antoinette and Louis-Auguste marriage was initially met with mixed reaction from the French population. Marie Antoinette was well liked by the common people because of her beauty and her successful first official appearance in Paris on the 8th of June 1773. But there were people who detested the Austrian alliance, and there were those who had a difficult relationship with Marie Antoinette due to conflict in personalities. Madame du Barry, Louis XV's mistress and had considerable influence over Dauphin. Madame du Barry was involved in the removal of Etienne François, Duc de Choiseul, who was one of the architects of the Franco-Austrian alliance and Marie Antoinette's marriage. Madame du Barry also exiled the Duc de Choiseul's sister, the Duchesse de Gramont, who was one of Marie Antoinette's ladies-in-waiting. Her husband's aunts persuaded Marie Antoinette to refuse to acknowledge du Barry, which was seen by some as a political miscalculation that threatened Austria's interests at the French court. The Austrian ambassador to France, Comte de Mercy-Argentat, who was sending Marie Antoinette's mother secret reports on her daughter's behavior at court. The Empress and the ambassador applied pressure on Marie Antoinette to speak to Madame du Barry, which she reluctantly agreed to do on New Year's Day 1772. Marie Antoinette simply mentioned to Madame du Barry, There are a lot of people at Versailles today, but it was enough for King's mistress, who was content with this acknowledgement, and the crisis passed. Immediately after the death of Louis XV in 1774, Louis XVI sent Madame du Barry into exile at the Abbaye de Pont aux Dames in Meaux, to the pleasure of both his wife and aunts. 2.5 years later, at the end of October 1776, Madame du Barry's exile was over and she was allowed to return to her much-loved chateau at Louveciennes, but she was never allowed to return to Versailles. The Dauphin ascended the throne as King Louis XVI of France and Navarre, and Marie Antoinette became Queen of France and Navarre, after the death of his father Louis XV on the 10th of May 1774. From the beginning Marie had little political influence with her husband, who with the support of his two most important ministers, Chief Minister Maurepas and Foreign Minister Vergennes, blocked several of her candidates from assuming important positions, including Choiseul. Marie did play an important role in exiling the disgraced Duke of Aiguillon, who was one of Louis XV's most powerful ministers. 2 weeks after the death of Louis XV on the 24th of May 1774, her husband gave her the Petit Trianon, with the freedom to renovate it. Rumors soon spread that the walls were plastered with gold and diamonds. Even though the country was facing a grave financial crisis and the public were suffering, Marie spent heavily on fashion, luxuries and gambling. Rose Burdon created dresses for Marie, and hairstyles such as puffs, up to 3 feet high. She and her court also adopted the English fashion of dresses made of Indian, percale and muslin. Riots broke out during the Flour War of 1775 against the high price of flour and bread. At this time Marie's reputation among the general public plummeted. Many started to blame Marie for the degrading economic situation, insinuating the country's inability to pay off its debt was the result of Marie spendthrifting the crown's money. Even Maria Theresa, Marie Antoinette's mother, expressed concern over her daughter's spending, citing civil unrest it was causing. Marie had begun to make friends with some of her male admirers at court, including Baron de Bizenval, the Duc de Coigny, and Count Valentin Esterhazy. She also formed deep friendships with some ladies at court, notably Marie-Louise, Princess de Lamballe, who was related to the royal family through her marriage into the Penthièvre family. On 19 September 1774 she appointed her superintendent of her household to her new favorite, the Duchess de Polignac. In 1774, she took under her patronage her former music teacher, the German opera composer Christoph Wibold Gluck, who remained with her in France until 1779. Under the disguise of Comte de Falkenstein, the Holy Roman Emperor Joseph came to France for a 6-week visit during which he toured Paris and was a guest at Versailles. He met his sister and her husband on 18 April until 1777 at the Château de la Muette. During their meeting, Joseph spoke frankly to his Louis, inquiring why the royal marriage had not been consummated. Later in a letter to his brother Leopold, Joseph described them as a couple of complete blunderers. Following Joseph's intervention, the marriage was finally consummated in August 1777. 9 months later, on the 16th of May 1778, it was officially announced that Marie was pregnant. Marie Antoinette's daughter, Marie Thérèse Charlotte, Madame Royale, was born at Versailles on the 19th of December 1778. During Marie's pregnancy, two events occurred which would return to haunt her later in her later life. Firstly, return of her friend, the Swedish diplomat Count Axel von Fersen, to Versailles for 2 years, and Marie's brother's claim to the throne of Bavaria, contested by the Habsburg monarchy and Prussia. Marie Antoinette begged her husband for the French to intercede on behalf of Austria, leading to the Peace of Tessen, which was signed on 13 May 1779 and ended the brief conflict, with the Marie imposing French mediation at her mother's request and Austria's gaining a territory of at least 100,000 inhabitants, a great retreat from the early French position which was hostile against Austria. This gave the public impression that Marie Antoinette, Queen of France, had sided with Austria against France. In the meantime, Marie initiated changes in court customs. This was met with disapproval from the older generation, such as the abandonment of heavy makeup and the popular wide-hooped panniers for a new fashion of a simpler feminine look, such as the rustic robe à la Polonaise style and later by the Gaul. Marie started to perform in amateur plays and musicals, in 1780, in a theatre constructed by Richard Mick at the Petit Trianon. French debt remained a constant and difficult problem, increased further by Vergennes and also by Marie Antoinette's insisting that Louis should involve France in Great Britain's war against the North American colonies. The American Revolution was helped by Marie in securing Austrian and Russian support for France, which resulted in the creation of a neutral coalition that stopped Great Britain's attack. Marie also secured the nomination of Philippe Henri, Marquis de Ségur as Minister of War and Charles-Eugène Gabriel de Lacroix, Marquis de Castries as Secretary of the Navy in 1780, who assisted George Washington to defeat the British in the American Revolutionary until its conclusion in 1783. Marie played an important part in the nomination of Charles Alexander de Calonne, as Controller General of Finances, and of the Baron de Breteuil as the Minister of the Royal Household in 1783, creating the strongest and most conservative minister of the Louis XVI's reign. Marie Antoinette's influence became paramount in government through these two nominations, and the new ministers rejected any major change to the structure of the old regime, such as the decree by de Ségur, the Minister of War, which blocked the access of commoners to important positions in the armed forces, a challenge to the French. The concept of equality, which was one of the main causes of the French Revolution. During 1779 it has been debated whether Marie Antoinette's second pregnancy ended in a miscarriage or that she may have experienced bleeding related to an irregular menstrual cycle, which she mistakenly mistook as a lost pregnancy. Marie's third pregnancy was confirmed in March 1781, and on 22 October that year she gave birth to the new Dauphin of France, Louis-Joseph Xavier François. The death of her mother on the 29th of November 1780 in Vienna, caused Marie Antoinette to fear it would jeopardize the Franco-Austrian alliance, but her brother, Joseph II, Holy Roman Emperor, wrote to her that he had no intention of stopping the alliance between the two nations. Her brother, the Emperor Joseph II, visited Marie in France for a second time in July 1781 to reaffirm the Franco-Austrian alliance, which created rumors that Marie Antoinette was sending money to Joseph from the French treasury. Marie Antoinette's political influence did greatly benefit Austria. For instance, during the Kettle War, when her brother Joseph attempted to open a naval passage on the Scheldt River, Marie Antoinette succeeded in obliging Virgin to pay a huge financial compensation to Austria. Marie was also able to gain her brother's support against Great Britain in the American Revolution, and she reduced French hostility to his alliance with Russia. When the Princess Dagmine, the governess of the Enfants de France, went bankrupt and resigned in 1782, Marie appointed her favorite, the Duchess de Polignac, to the position. This was met with disapproval from the court, as the Duchess was considered to be of too modest a birth to undertake such a high position. But Louis and Marie both trusted Mademoiselle de Polignac completely, paying her well and giving her a 13-room apartment in Versailles. The rise of the Polignac family benefited greatly from royal favor in titles and positions, but its sudden wealth and lavish lifestyle created conflict. Most of the aristocratic families, who resented the Polignacs, detested their influence at court, and increasing popular disapproval of Marie Antoinette. Marie Antoinette's fourth pregnancy was announced in June 1783, but early in November, on her 28th birthday, she suffered a miscarriage. On his return from America in June 1783, Count Axel von Fersen was accepted into the Queen's private society. Even though some still claim that the two were romantically involved, but since their letters had been either lost or destroyed, there is no hard evidence of an affair. Marie's behavior led to the publication of pamphlets describing farcical sexual deviance, including the Queen and her favorites in the court were growing in popularity around the country. The Portefeuille d'un Talon Rouge was one of the earliest pamphlets, which included the Queen and other nobles highlighting the immoral practices of the court. But eventually, these came to focus solely on Marie. As the attacks in the pamphlets increased, they coincided with the public's dislike of Marie's connection with France's rival nation, Austria. Marie's mother once again expressed concern for the safety of her daughter, and she began to use Austria's ambassador to France, the Comte de Mercy-Argenta, to inform her of Marie's safety. Again in 1783, Marie caused public uproar again when the cost of the building of her hamlet, by her favored architect, Richard Mick, became public knowledge. She had also accumulated some 5,000 books and sponsor arts, music, and also the first launch of a Montgolfier, a hot air balloon. Louis XVI created further unpopularity with his nobility and population when he acquired the Château de Saint-Cloud from the Duc d'Orléans in the name of his wife, on the 24th of October 1784. Their image was damaged further with the 6 million livres purchase of St. Cloud, which did not include the additional cost of redecorating, which in turn decreased the country's ability to clear its debts. Marie Antoinette gave birth to her second son, Louis Charles, the Duke of Normandy, on the 27th of March 1785. Her pregnancy did not escape the attention of the French public that the birth was 9 months after the return of Fersen to court, creating doubt about the true father and damaging Marie's reputation even further. Courtiers at Versailles noted that the child's conception corresponded with a period of time when the Louis and Marie had spent most of their time together, but these details were lost and the attacks on the Queen's character increased. Marie would have one further child, and second daughter, Marie-Sophie Helene Beatrix, was born on the 9th of July 1786. Sadly, Madame Sophie would only live for 11 months, passing away on the 19th of June 1787. Popular opinion had turned sharply against Marie, with the image of a licentious, spendthrift, empty-headed foreign queen. She had to live through suspicions of illegitimacy, continued publication of the libels depicting her never-ending cavalcades of court intrigues, her loyalties to her brother, Joseph II during the Kettle War, the purchase of St. Cloud, and most notably diamond necklace scandal. Marie Antoinette became greatly involved in politics in her role as Queen of France in an attempt to shrug off her carefree image. By publicly displaying her attention of the care and education and care of her children, Marie tried to the negative press she had received in 1785 from the diamond necklace affair. An affair, which public opinion had falsely accused her of her participation in defrauding the jewelers Boehmer and Bassange of their diamond necklace which they had created for Madame du Barry. A main player in the scandal was Cardinal de Rohan, whom Marie had disliked since the time the cardinal had been the French ambassador to Vienna at the time of her childhood. In spite of his high clerical position at the court, Marie never spoke to Cardinal de Rohan. The scandal began with Mademoiselle de la Motte tricking the Cardinal de Rohan into buying the necklace as a present to Marie Antoinette as a tool to gain Marie's favor at court. On the discovery of the scandal, all those involved were arrested, tried, convicted and were exiled. Only Mademoiselle de la Motte was imprisoned by being given a life sentence to Petit-Salpêtrière Hospital, which was also used as a prison for women. The French Parliament found Cardinal de Rohan innocent of any wrongdoing and allowed to leave the Bastille, despite the protestations from the Queen. Even though the guilty parties were tried and convicted, the scandal was extremely damaging to Marie, one which herself and the monarchy never recovered from. When King Louis XVI started suffering with depression, he started to seek the advice of his wife more and more. Together with her increasing political power and her new role, Marie attempted to improve the disputes brewing between the Assembly and the king. Her new role brought to the end of the Polignacs' influence and their control of the crown's finance. Even though there were cutbacks to the royal retinue and court expenses, it could not stop the deterioration of the financial situation, forcing Louis, Marie and the Minister of Finance, Calonne, to call for the first time in 160 years, a session of the Assembly of Notables. The purpose was to initiate much-needed financial reforms, But the French Parliament refused to cooperate. The first assembly meeting was held on 22nd of February 1787, a meeting which Marie was not in attendance for, leading to accusations that she was trying to undermine the assembly. Following the failure of the assembly where no reforms were passed leading to the defiance of the king, Marie urged Louis to dismiss Calonne on 8 April 1787. Calonne replacement as Controller General of Finances and late as Prime Minister was Etienne Charles de Lomenie de Brienne, Archbishop of Toulouse, who was a close friend of Marie Antoinette. Despite his attempt to create more cutbacks at court whilst restoring royal power weakened by the French Parliament failed. This led to the dissolution of the Assembly of Notables on 25 May 1787. The failure of the assembly was blamed on Marie, which drastically affected her political position. France's financial woes were the culmination of many factors, several expensive wars, and a large royal family who were paid for by the state, and that most members of the aristocracy, privileged classes, and clergy did not want to trade their financial privileges in assisting the government. Although that Marie was not the sole cause of France's financial crisis, she was in the eyes of the public leading to receiving the name of Madame Deficit in 1787. Marie tried to win back public support by portraying herself as a caring mother, particularly in the painting by Elisabeth Vigée Lebrun, which was displayed at Royal Académie Salon de Paris in August 1787. This image was tainted though when Jeanne de Valois-Saint-Remy escaped from prison, and on arriving in London, she published damaging slander concerning her affair with Marie. The culmination of Louis and Marie actions worsened the political situation in 1787. When of the Queen's insistence the Parliament was exiled to Troyes on 15 August, and Louis XVI tried to use a lute de justice to impose legislation on the 11th of November. Finally, on the 8th of August, Louis XVI announced his intention to resurrect the Estates General, the traditional elected legislature of the country, which had not been used since 1614. Even though Marie was directly involved in all matters of state, her main focus was deterioration of the health of the Dauphin, who tuberculosis sufferer, from late 1787 to the Dauphin's death in June 1789. Marie Antoinette was pivotal in the popular move to reinstate Jacques Necker as finance minister, even though she herself was worried that if Necker was not successful in restructuring France's financial predicament, she would get the blame. Necker's idea was to double the representation of the Third Estate in order to check the power of the aristocracy. When the Estates General opened on 5 May 1789, the split between the democratic Third Estate and the conservative nobility of the Second Estate widened, thus giving the Marie's rival, Duc d'Orléans, who had provided during the winter money and bread to the people, public admiration. The Third Estate declared itself a national assembly and took the tennis court oath, and in doing so, people either spread the rumors that the Marie Antoinette, who was mourning the death of the Dauphin, wished to bathe in their blood. The Third Estate declared itself a national assembly and took the tennis court oath, and in doing so, people either spread the rumors that the Marie Antoinette, who was mourning the death of the Dauphin, wished to bathe in their blood. Marie urged Louis to remain resolute and not to concede to popular demands for reforms. Also, she was determined to use force to crush the forthcoming revolution.